This morning we're joined by Mr. Laolu Akande, as we've seen, is the host of Channel Television's Inside Sources and also a former presidential aide. Good morning and welcome.
Good to see you again, Margaret.
An aide's job is always difficult, you know. I mean, when the former vice president said what he said in Hausa, I'm sure a lot of people were wondering, he's going to bring it back. Maybe that was what the aides were wondering. Is he going to bring it back? Okay, maybe he's going to bring it back temporarily, then he's going to take it away again. And then there was a lot of interpretation of what he said and what he didn't say. And he had to come out to say, look, it looks like I've been misinterpreted. For the sake of clarity, I mean to bring this back. How do you think this should be interpreted? How does communication go usually between principals and their aides who are supposed to help spread and clarify in clear terms what it was that their principals were trying to say?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I think this is another proof of how we are beginning to bastardize, you know, and I hope that's not too strong. I'm trying to find something that is not as strong as that. But essentially, how our political elites are making a mincemeat, making nonsense of how they ought to organize their spokespeople. And so what is happening, or what we have seen happen in the Atiku camp, it also had happened even in the presidency, you know, where you have spokespeople taking different positions on issues publicly. So it's a reflection of how, and I say this with a lot of responsibility. I say with a lot of responsibility, but it has to be said. It's a reflection of how careless, you know, public communication has been taken for a long time by political leaders. Look, when I was a presidential spokesperson, you know, before I make any statement at all, I had to clear it. I had to have a conversation with the principal, okay? And we made sure that there is only one official spokesperson, just one. There might be other people who will be speaking in designated platforms, okay? Like for instance, we had somebody just talking on the talk shows in radio and television, and we have somebody doing social media, which is essentially commentary. But when it comes to speaking officially, there ought to be only one person doing that, whether for the president or for a presidential candidate. So Atiku needs to clean his house. Right now, he has too many people who don't understand their job, and I suspect that Atiku himself, doesn't understand how to organize the office of the spokesperson. And that's why you see Frank Shaibu and Paul Ibe, you know, saying different things. It's very messy. But it's not just Atiku. It has even happened under this presidency. So yes, you know, it doesn't show cohesion, and for me, it reflects how careless, and I say that with a lot of responsibility, a lot of our political elites handle public information.
Do you think it's so much about that or the issue itself? In terms of, for some people, they have raised question as to fuel subsidy. How do you intend to bring it back? I mean, it would seem that they were trying to make excuses because for those who understand and for those who see things from the prism of maybe not this current government, but in terms of where we're coming from and the trajectory of this conversation around fuel subsidy, it would seem that there was general consensus on the fact that it should go. What we couldn't agree on was how it should go, when it should go, in what manner it should go. But it would seem that there had been a strong enough case made that this thing needed to go. So maybe, do you think that there was a bit of an embarrassment that, okay, where is this coming from? And so it was an attempt to manage expectations around this sort of promise being made by their principal.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that the bigger issue is about the content of the argument about subsidy, the reopening of the debate. which I must commend Atiku for. Yes, of course, his political enemies must make a meal of the fact that he's, he's quote unquote flip-flopping. They have a duty to call him out on that. But I think on the whole, Atiku is doing us as a nation a good turn by saying, and this is how I interpret it, we need to reopen this conversation. We need to look at this debate again. Now, I think that subsidy, the way it was being managed in the past has been a scam. I think the president himself, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has said that. And so there is the need, and as a matter of fact, in 2022, all of the presidential candidates, the major ones, said that we're going to remove it. So there is a consensus that we need to remove subsidy in the way that it was being done. What there is no consensus, or there was never a consensus about, is how do you ensure that the poor people are not the ones that are going to be carrying the burden, because you have some rich elites, business elites, even political elites who have been gaming the system, which is what the subsidy scam is. So you can't remove the subsidy scam, without sorting out how the ordinary Nigerians would not be the ones carrying the body, which is what we have what is happening right now. Yes, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is right to say that we got to stop this subsidy. Everybody knew that. He had the courage to do it. But it is also a scam if you then dump all the responsibility and the burden on the poor people who did not do anything wrong in that subsidy scam. Second point. And then we say that it's a subsidy scam. Where are the convictions? Where are those who game the system? What is the consequence that they are suffering? And so when you have a situation where the poor people, the ordinary Nigerians, are the ones that are carrying the can, and those elites, those fat cats who were gaming the system with a subsidy running into billions of naira, even trillions, they are walking free, Malpe. Nobody is holding them to an account. That is also a scam.
Indeed. And maybe some people will say maybe that's what his press people were trying to manage, that, that consensus it was saying. But let me, take you to this issue now, because it will seem as a result of this. And it's unclear, because you never know until it is launched.
Yeah.
But here we are. The federal government has now launched a $1 billion Hope Social Protection Program. It's a social protection initiative, which is aimed at moving vulnerable Nigerians from dependence on palliatives to sustainable pathways of economic empowerment and self-reliance. That's what they say it is.
Yeah.
And it's coming 4 months to elections. It doesn't remind you of anything. Because I do know that, Vice President Osinbajo also came under some fire when they were doing the market trader money just a few weeks before elections. And some people say, well, it's a good thing. You've always had the social protection program, but the timing is the challenge. What is your take on the timing of this particular project? Because some people will say 4 months to elections, to be launching such a program like this, $1 billion. Are we trying to buy votes here?
Well, quite frankly, Markwe, we have to look at the bigger picture. Yes, again, the political opponents of the president, they have a basis to go after him, like they came after, the Buhari-Osinbajo presidency, because they want to, shake things up. They want to get their job, so they are free to go that way as much as possible. But I think government, and myself in this position, I am concerned about whether indeed this is going to serve the interest of the poor people. Do you think those poor people care? If government is organizing something that seems a legitimate way to assuage their sufferings, they don't care whether you did it on your first day in office or you did it on your second to the last day in office. They just want to be helped. And for me, that is the common interest. So I will ask that, yes, we wish that this had been done earlier, but if it is being done now, let it be done properly, let it be done decently, and let it be done quickly to get help to the people. Nigerians that are suffering, they cannot afford the luxuries of those of us who do political punditry, the opponents trying to get, no, Nigerians don't have time for that. We can have that luxury, they don't. So I commend this move. I wish it started earlier. And I like the fact that, it's going to be a $1 billion, because if you translate that again, that's going to come to about probably over 100 billion or 150. I think we can even do more. But I hope that this is a serious program. I hope this is a program that is going to be properly well articulated and implemented. Because as we are speaking today, I don't know that we have been able to answer that question of having a social safety net that is being efficiently managed. If this one is going to be an answer to that, then it is welcome.
Well, I know Ayo has a quick question for you on the campaign council list. Ayo, over to you.
Well, thank you. Just, I would rather, avoid that one. I'm very much interested in the issue of the cost of living, even though that APC listing thing is also something that you may want to speak to. You may want to speak about it as well, Mr. Akande, particularly when people expected that maybe the list would be recalled, but now we hear it's being reviewed. But I'm more interested in the fact that the cost of living crisis is something that it seems many people, particularly in the state governments, aren't talking about. You talked about us heaping the responsibility of the subsidy on Nigerians. But then we also have heard the president say a number of times that the reason the state governments get more resources is so that they can cushion the effect of the subsidy on their people. It would seem like either there is no agreement on that between the federal and the state governments, or that everyone is just radio silent on that. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ayo, for that question. I think we have to find a way to hold the state governors more accountable in our country. The president is right that more money has been going to the state government, and I don't think they're even denying it. Some of them are saying that, well, there has been inflation, the value of the money is not as good as when, and some of that is also correct. But it is not entirely correct, because nobody has actually done an increase, for instance, in the emolument that is paid public service or public servants based on something that really matches up the inflation. So the bottom line is that there is much more money in the hands of state governments to actually impact, at least in my view, 3 areas: education, health, and agriculture. And there is nothing in our constitution today that limits state governments from delivering on those 3 areas. The constitution doesn't limit them at all. Trying to help agriculture, ensuring that the produce gets to the market in such a way that it doesn't significantly change the price or up the price. If state government try to find a way to bring the produce closer to the people so that the transportation cost can be cut off. Many state governments are not doing that. I think that was the time Lagos State started, some farmers market stuff. I don't know how much they have sustained that. But then come to the issue of health. There was a guy who went to on Instagram, after Ugo's death. God bless his soul. Very talented, wonderful icon in the entertainment industry is dead. And he said that they found out that there are no radiotherapy facilities in any Lagos State government hospital. When I saw that, I forwarded it to some of the people in government in the state. Say, is this true? That the only radiotherapy facility exists in Luth, which is a federal hospital. So you have a lot of people who are queuing. There's a long queue for people who need that service. And I'm wondering, why can't a state government sort those things? So in areas of education, in areas of health, in areas of agriculture, we have to find ways to hold the governors accountable. We are not doing much in trying to call them. Everybody is focused on the president in Abuja. But in this particular area, we must find means to hold the governors responsible. We must call them out, especially on education, health, and agriculture, because nothing limits them.
Well, I believe that quite a number of state governors should be taking the cue and releasing their scorecards as well. After all, the federal government has shown example in that regard with the Ministry of Finance coming out with its own scorecard. But we have to thank you, as always, for coming on Sunrise Daily. Mr. Laolu Akande is the host of Channels Television's Inside Sources and a former presidential aide.